Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest achievements known to man were not made by bursts of genius, nor were they secured by fleeting moments of inspiration. They were built, brick, by the tireless hands of consistency. Let me make this perfectly clear. Success is not an accident. It is the inevitable result of deliberate effort, repeated over time, and yet most people fail not because they lack the talent, not because they lack the opportunity, but because they refuse to be consistent. They flirt with their goals, but they never commit. You must force yourself to be consistent, yes, force, because the truth is, consistency is not always convenient. It is not always comfortable. It demands that you show up when you're tired, that you work when no one is watching, and that you persist long after the excitement has faded. Consistency is discipline in action, and discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Ask yourself, how badly do you want the life you claim to desire? If your answer is anything less than I will have it or die trying, then you have already accepted mediocrity. The path to greatness is not lined with motivation, it is paved with habit. And habits are forged in repetition. A man becomes what he does daily. Therefore, what you do every single day must be aligned with who you want to become. Let me give it to you straight. You will not rise above your standards. If you allow yourself to slack off just this once, you are training your mind to accept excuses. Excuses are the language of failure. They are the lullabies of the weak. If you entertain them, even briefly, they will multiply and bury you alive. The strongest force in human nature is the desire to remain consistent with who we believe we are. So change your identity. Decide today, right now, that you are a person of action, a finisher, a relentless executor. Then back that decision with work. Back it with sweat. Back it with daily effort, no matter how small. Remember this. Your success is not defined by how you feel. It is defined by what you do. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for the mood to strike. Stop waiting for some imaginary perfect time. Force yourself to be consistent, because the world does not reward potential. It rewards performance, and performance is born from consistency. Your dreams are real, your vision is valid, but they will remain ghosts in your mind unless you bring them to life through daily, disciplined action. One day at a time, one step at a time. So I challenge you, force yourself to be consistent. Not for a day, not for a week, but until your results can no longer be denied. Most people misunderstand what leads to success. They imagine it's a sudden strike of brilliance, a once-in-a-lifetime idea, or a brief burst of intense effort fueled by motivation. They look at successful individuals and see only the highlight reel. The moment the book becomes a bestseller, the athlete wins the championship, the business turns its first million. What they don't see is the daily grind behind the scenes, the countless hours of focused repetition, the small and often unnoticed actions repeated with precision, and the decision to keep showing up long after the initial excitement has faded. Success isn't born in flashes of genius. It is built methodically and patiently on repetition. Repetition may seem boring, it may seem mundane, but it is the essence of mastery. Whether it's a pianist practicing scales, a writer crafting sentences, a salesperson making calls, or an entrepreneur refining a pitch, repetition is the forge where excellence is shaped. Doing the same thing over and over with intention is what transforms average efforts into world-class results. One performance might be luck, but excellence that repeats is never an accident. When someone gets up early every morning to work toward a goal, when they train, study, build, improve, they're creating momentum. Each act reinforces the last, creating a rhythm of progress. One good day leads to another. One small win lays the foundation for a bigger one. These consistent repetitions compound over time. They create an edge. That edge becomes a gap. Eventually, that gap becomes the difference between those who wish and those who win. The truth is that motivation is fleeting, inspiration is unreliable. You can't build a life of success on a feeling that comes and goes. What you can build on is the structure of repetition. It gives you a clear process and a predictable path forward. You don't need to feel your best every day. You just need to do your best consistently. By showing up, by putting in the reps, you wire success into your habits. You stop being someone who occasionally tries and become someone who persistently performs. Repetition also reveals the flaws in your craft. When you do something once, it's hard to spot the weaknesses, but when you repeat it day in and day out, you start to see the gaps, you see what needs refinement, you improve. This is how greatness is developed, not in one grand effort, but in thousands of intentional, often quiet, often unglamorous efforts, stacked one after another. There is a myth that great success comes from passion alone. That is false. Passion may light the spark, but repetition keeps the fire burning. Passion can fade, but repetition builds skill, and skill, especially when combined with time, becomes unstoppable. A talented person who lacks consistency will always lose to a consistent person who builds their talent daily through repetition. Talent might get you started, but repetition is what gets you to the finish line. You must understand that your mind and body respond to what you do repeatedly. Repetition programs you. It conditions your thinking. If you practice discipline, you become disciplined. If you train confidence through action, you become confident. But if you repeat procrastination, you become a procrastinator. If you give in to comfort, you teach yourself that avoidance is acceptable. What you do over and over becomes who you are. Your life today is a reflection of the patterns you've repeated until now. That's why repetition, when combined with awareness, becomes the most powerful tool in your hands. You can reshape your identity through repeated intentional action. You don't need to transform everything overnight. You only need to commit to the process. Do it today, do it tomorrow, do it even when no one is watching, especially then. Consistency when no one's watching is the foundation of integrity, and integrity with your own goals is where true power begins. But repetition alone isn't enough. It must be done with direction and focus. Mindless repetition will not lead to mastery. Intentional, purposeful repetition will. When you repeat with feedback, when you learn, adapt, and improve each time, you accelerate your growth. You become faster, sharper, better. You get clarity through doing, not through waiting or overthinking. There will be days when it feels like nothing is happening, days when your efforts seem invisible. But that's the nature of growth. It happens silently, like seeds growing underground. The results may be delayed, but they are inevitable if you keep watering the soil with action. Every rep is a seed. Every step forward is proof that you're no longer just hoping. You're creating, so don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for everything to feel right. Instead, commit to the process. Set your standard high and your threshold for quitting low. Take pride in the repetition, because every great life, every great body of work, every great success story was once just a series of repeated actions done with discipline and belief. Repetition is not failure. Repetition is the path. If you're repeating with purpose, you are not stuck. You are training, you are sharpening, you are building something most people will never have, consistency, and with that, you can achieve almost anything. The people who achieve their goals are not the ones who tried the hardest for one day. They're the ones who tried every day. They're the ones who built momentum through deliberate, repeated effort. So, repeat with purpose. Repeat with vision. Repeat until it becomes who you are, because it's not what you do once. It's what you do consistently that defines your future. There's a hard truth that many people spend their lives trying to avoid. If you wait until you feel like being consistent, you will never be consistent. The people who reach the top of their field, the ones who transform their lives and accomplish what others only dream of, are not the ones who wait for the right mood, the perfect moment, or a sudden wave of motivation. They are the ones who force themselves to do the work, even when every fiber of their being would rather take the day off. They understand something most people don't. Success is rarely convenient, and consistency almost never feels good at first. When you start out on any goal, whether it's building a business, writing a book, improving your health, or mastering a skill, it's easy to feel inspired. The vision is clear, the energy is high, and you're ready to move. But that feeling fades, life gets in the way, distractions show up, doubt creeps in, fatigue sets down roots, and that's where most people stop. They take a break, tell themselves it's temporary, and promise to start again when they feel ready. But ready never comes. Days turn into weeks, and that goal becomes just another idea left on the shelf. The problem isn't the goal, the problem is the reliance on emotion. The solution is force. Force doesn't mean aggression. It doesn't mean you scream at yourself or grind until you collapse. It means you develop the mental strength to follow through, no matter what. You become the kind of person who does what needs to be done, not just when it's easy or exciting, but when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's the last thing you want to do. That kind of force is discipline in its purest form. It's not something you're born with, it's something you build, and you build it by refusing to negotiate with yourself. Most people live in a constant mental negotiation. They wake up and ask themselves how they feel before deciding what to do. They let their mood dictate their actions. This is the fast track to failure. If your effort depends on how you feel, then your progress will be unstable and unreliable. Real consistency starts when you stop asking for permission from your feelings. You don't ask if you feel like showing up, you just show up. You don't ask if you're in the mood to train, write, build, or create. You just start. You take action first and let the feelings catch up later. This isn't easy. In fact, it can feel unnatural at first. Everything in your mind may resist. You might feel tired, distracted, unmotivated, but none of those feelings are final. They are temporary states, like clouds drifting across the sky. If you let them pass without attaching your behavior to them, you win. You don't need to eliminate those feelings. You just need to stop obeying them. Every time you force yourself to follow through, you build internal strength. It's like training a muscle. At first, the resistance is high, but the more you do it, the more automatic it becomes. Eventually, you reach a point where consistency feels like the default, not because you're always motivated, but because you've trained your identity. You see yourself as someone who follows through, and your actions reflect that belief. There will be moments when the excuses sound logical. You'll tell yourself you need rest, that it's not the right time, that you're too busy. But deep down, you know the truth. You know when you're avoiding the hard thing. You know when you're choosing comfort over growth. That awareness is your compass. Use it. When you feel resistance, lean into it. That's where the breakthrough lies. Growth does not come from avoiding struggle. It comes from facing it head on. The people who accomplish the extraordinary are not immune to discomfort. They simply act in spite of it. They've learned to separate feelings from commitment. They don't waste time waiting for the stars to align. They take the small, unglamorous steps every day, and over time, those steps add up to something massive. The results others marvel at are built on quiet moments of decision. Moments when they could have quit, but didn't. Consistency is not a feeling. It's a decision you make again and again. It's the choice to be bigger than your excuses. It's the daily refusal to let temporary emotions dictate your future. You force yourself to be consistent not because it's easy, but because the life you want demands it. Every single day you face a choice, act or delay. Progress or pause, growth or comfort. Most people choose comfort, then wonder why nothing changes. If you want something different, you must be someone different. That means doing what most people won't. That means pushing yourself when it would be easier to relax. That means developing the inner force to act when you least feel like it. When you force yourself to be consistent, you're not just completing tasks, you're building identity. You're becoming the kind of person who follows through. That shift in identity is powerful. It changes how you see yourself. It changes how others see you. And it changes what becomes possible in your life. Force is not about punishment. It's about freedom, the freedom to live on your terms, the freedom to trust yourself, the freedom that comes from knowing that you will do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. That kind of freedom is earned, and it's earned through consistent, intentional effort, even when you don't feel like it. So stop waiting, stop stalling, stop hoping for the right mood. Force yourself to show up. Do the work. Keep the promise. One disciplined action at a time. That is how success is built. That is how consistency is formed. And that is how you transform your life. Discipline is not a personality trait. It's not something a few lucky people are born with. It is the engine behind every form of real progress, and it's available to anyone willing to claim it. Discipline is the inner strength that allows you to do what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. It is what separates wishful thinking from measurable achievement. Without it, you drift. With it, you drive. And if you want to achieve anything worthwhile, you must make discipline your foundation, because progress does not happen by accident. People talk about goals, visions, and dreams as if those alone will move the needle. But ideas without discipline are empty. Discipline is the bridge between intention and action. It is the daily grind, the repetition, the quiet sacrifices no one sees. While others are waiting for inspiration to strike, the disciplined person is already at work, writing the page, lifting the weight, learning the skill. They don't wait to feel ready. They show up because they've made the decision that progress is not optional. The reason discipline is the engine of progress is simple. It creates consistency, and consistency creates momentum. When you act with discipline, day after day, even in small doses, you compound your efforts. You build something solid. A single disciplined action might not change your life today, but 100 will. 1,000 will transform you, and that transformation becomes irreversible when it's driven by discipline, because now you're no longer relying on motivation. You're relying on character. This is where most people fall short. They rely too heavily on their mood to determine their output. If they feel tired, they skip the gym. If they feel uninspired, they don't write. If they're distracted, they don't follow through, and then they wonder why they don't make progress. They believe they need more time or more talent, but what they really need is more discipline. Progress doesn't ask you to be extraordinary. It asks you to be consistent. And consistency is a byproduct of discipline. Think of discipline as a form of self-leadership. It is you taking command of your own life. Instead of being a passenger, tossed around by circumstance and feeling, you become the driver. You choose your actions and you stick to them, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable, especially then. Because the moment you act despite resistance, you grow. The more you do it, the more trust you build with yourself. You begin to realize that you are not at the mercy of your emotions. You are stronger than them. This doesn't mean you never rest. It means you don't confuse rest with avoidance. It means you schedule your rest with purpose, not as a reaction to fatigue or boredom. True discipline includes balance, but it is never passive. It never hides behind excuses. Discipline requires honest self-assessment. It demands clarity. You must know what you want and why you want it. Then you must decide that the daily work is non-negotiable. That is how progress is made, not by hoping, but by honoring a commitment to action. Progress is not always obvious. It's not always fast, and that's where discipline is most valuable. It keeps you going when the results are invisible. It reminds you that the process is working, even when you can't see it yet, because discipline is not just about doing, it's about believing. It is the belief that every action counts. That every rep, every paragraph, every call, every decision is part of something bigger, and that belief keeps you moving forward, even when there's no applause, no immediate payoff. You will face resistance. From the outside world, yes, but mostly from within. There will be days when you want to quit, days when progress feels pointless, days when your inner voice will beg you to take the easy way out. That's when discipline matters most. It is your ability to keep showing up in those moments that will define your success. Not the days when everything goes right, but the days when everything is stacked against you and you act anyway. Discipline creates stability in a world full of chaos. It is your anchor. When others get swept away by distraction, you stay grounded. When others lose focus, you stay locked in because you've made a decision. Progress is not up for debate. It doesn't need to be glamorous. It just needs to be real work, real effort, real results. There's something deeply empowering about living this way. You stop waiting for things to happen and start making them happen. You stop blaming the outside world and start taking full responsibility. That's what discipline gives you control. Control over your time, your focus, your direction. And with that control, you can build anything, a business, a body, a legacy. All of it begins and ends with discipline. The best part, discipline gets stronger with use. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. At first, it feels like a battle, but over time it becomes who you are. You stop resisting the process, and you start embracing it. What once felt like a burden begins to feel like a privilege. You realize that discipline isn't about restriction. It's about freedom, the freedom to choose your future, the freedom to walk your own path. So if you want to make progress, real, lasting progress, start with discipline. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop chasing motivation. Decide what matters and commit to doing it every single day, not just when it's easy, not just when it's fun, but especially when it's hard, because that's the price of growth, and the reward is worth every ounce of effort. Excuses are comfortable lies we tell ourselves to avoid doing the hard work. They sound reasonable, even convincing, but they are nothing more than delays dressed up in logic. People cling to excuses because they provide an escape hatch. They allow you to walk away from effort without feeling like a quitter. I don't have time. I'm too tired. I'll start when I'm ready. It's not the right environment. These are the polished chains that keep you from moving forward. If you want to force yourself to be consistent, you must declare war on every excuse you've ever used to justify your inaction. Every excuse is a small surrender. It might seem harmless in the moment, but it chips away at your power. One excuse leads to another. One skipped day becomes a skipped week. Eventually, your dreams fade not because you weren't capable, but because you believed the wrong voice. The voice of delay, the voice of limitation, the voice that tells you, not now, maybe later. That voice is a liar. It does not want your success. It wants your comfort, and comfort is the enemy of achievement. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to stop allowing your excuses to win. And here's the hard truth. Your excuses aren't special. You're not the only one with a job, a family, fatigue, responsibilities, distractions, or pressure. The difference between those who rise and those who stay stuck is not the absence of excuses, it's the refusal to let them decide your actions. Excuses only have power when you agree with them. The moment you reject them, you regain control. Progress requires sacrifice, and often the first thing you must sacrifice is the story that says, "I can't." That story has no place in a life built on discipline and self-respect. People often wait until their circumstances are perfect before they take action. But life is never going to make it easy for you. There will always be noise. There will always be obstacles. If you wait until you feel like it, you'll be waiting forever. Excuses will always be there to offer a softer route, but they will never take you anywhere worth going. To remove excuses, you must first expose them, write them down, look them in the eye, make them real, and then dismantle them one by one. I don't have time. Audit your day. Everyone has the same 24 hours. Maybe you don't lack time, you lack intention. I'm too tired. Then improve your habits, fix your sleep, eat better, move your body. I don't know how. Then start learning, read, ask questions, take the first step. Excuses thrive in darkness, but when you shine a light on them, their weakness becomes obvious. This mindset shift is essential. You must stop treating your excuses as valid obstacles and start treating them as the enemy. Because that's what they are. The enemy of your potential, the enemy of your growth, the enemy of every dream you've dared to imagine. People who reach their goals are not those without challenges. They're the ones who stare their excuses down and say, "I'm doing it anyway." Every time you act in spite of an excuse, you gain power. You take back control from the voice of limitation, and with each win you build momentum. Momentum is the antidote to excuses. Once you start taking action consistently, your old stories start to lose their grip. You begin to rewrite the narrative. You go from "I can't" to "I am," from "maybe someday" to "right now." That shift changes everything, not just your habits, but your entire identity. Excuses are clever. They adapt. Just when you overcome one, another shows up, dressed in new language. You have to be vigilant. Self-awareness is your defense. Recognize when you're making excuses. Call yourself out. Don't sugarcoat it. Be brutally honest. Ask yourself, is this a real problem, or am I giving myself permission to avoid effort? Most of the time, it's the latter. It's not easy, but no one promised it would be. Growth is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be, and excuses are always more tempting when you're pushing your limits. But that's also when the most powerful transformations happen. If you want the reward, you have to be willing to reject the easy way out. You have to choose action over avoidance every single day. Some people spend their entire lives rehearsing their excuses, defending them, polishing them until they sound like truth. But deep down they know. They know they've let fear win. They know they've chosen comfort over greatness. Don't be that person. Don't let another day go by where your future is held hostage by your excuses. Instead, adopt a new standard. One where you don't allow yourself to skip the hard things because it's inconvenient. One where you don't compromise on your goals because something feels difficult. Create a personal rule: I do not tolerate excuses from others, and especially from myself. Hold that standard like your life depends on it, because your success certainly does. Excuses don't disappear on their own. You destroy them with action. The moment you take any step, they begin to lose their power. And the more steps you take, the less room excuses have to operate. Eventually, they stop showing up because they no longer find a willing audience. You have one shot at this life, one chance to turn your ideas into reality, your potential into power. Don't let weak justifications keep you from becoming who you were meant to be. Choose effort, choose commitment, choose action, and above all, choose to live without excuses. That's the path, that's the price, and that's the freedom. Success in any area of life is built on small actions repeated consistently over time. It's not the massive leaps that create lasting change. It's the daily steps, the tiny wins, the invisible victories that no one else sees. The most powerful way to stay consistent and make real progress is to master the art of showing up every single day, even if it's just for 5 minutes, because 5 minutes of focused effort, repeated daily, becomes a force greater than hours of occasional inspiration. People often make the mistake of believing that progress requires giant effort all at once. They set unrealistic expectations. They want to go from zero to mastery in a week. They want to see immediate results. And when those results don't come quickly enough, they quit. The reason: they didn't value small actions. They overlooked the compound effect of minor improvements. They underestimated the power of a consistent 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes are not just about what you accomplish in that short window. They are about what you build inside yourself. When you show up, even briefly, you send a message to your subconscious: this matters. You reinforce a habit. You strengthen your identity as someone who follows through. You chip away at resistance, and more often than not, those 5 minutes turn into more. But even if they don't, they still count. Consistency isn't about how long you work, it's about how often you return. Life will always bring chaos. Some days you'll feel energized, and other days you'll feel drained, but your commitment to show up regardless of mood or circumstance is what sets you apart. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing something reliably. That's how momentum is created. 5 minutes of reading, 5 minutes of journaling, 5 minutes of stretching, 5 minutes of focus on your craft. Alone, these seem insignificant. But multiplied across months and years, they transform you. The mind and body respond to frequency. They adapt to what you repeat. What you feed daily becomes who you are, and all it takes to begin is 5 minutes of deliberate effort. When you strip away the layers of excuse, perfectionism, and procrastination, you find that the real barrier is often just starting. That first step feels like the heaviest, but when you commit to a small time window, you lower the resistance. You give yourself no room for negotiation. It's just 5 minutes becomes the key that unlocks consistent behavior. You remove the drama, you eliminate the all or nothing mindset, and you finally begin to move. Many people sabotage themselves by aiming too high, too fast. They think, if I can't do an hour, it's not worth doing. That mindset kills consistency. The truth is, an imperfect 5 minutes beats zero effort every time. It's not about the quantity, it's about the continuity. A chain is forged one link at a time. Miss one link and you break the chain. Keep the chain alive even with a small link and your progress remains unbroken. This practice rewires your relationship with discipline. You stop seeing consistency as a burden. You stop waiting for the perfect block of time. You start taking control. You realize you don't need to be in the mood, have all the right tools, or wait for the stars to align. You just need to act, even if it's small, especially when it's small. It's also about trust. When you show up daily, no matter how briefly, you start to trust yourself. You believe your own word. You no longer rely on motivation. You rely on integrity. That inner trust is priceless. It's what keeps you going when results aren't immediate. It's what keeps you grounded when doubt creeps in. The strongest people are not the ones who always feel inspired. They're the ones who keep promises to themselves. And that promise can start with just 5 focused minutes. Progress loves simplicity. You don't need complex systems or perfect plans. What you need is action repeated with intention. 5 minutes with clarity is more effective than hours lost in confusion or distraction. When you know what matters and you do a little bit of it every day, you get further than most people ever will. And there's another truth: effort is contagious. When you show up for 5 minutes, you often find yourself doing 10, then 20. But even if you don't, that small action still builds the muscle of consistency. It removes the guilt of doing nothing. It proves to yourself that you're capable of showing up. and that proof becomes fuel for the next day. Over time, those 5-minute sessions add up. They compound. They accumulate like drops of water filling a jar, and one day you look back and realize how far you've come, not because of one giant push, but because of steady, committed, almost invisible progress. That's how mastery is built. That's how goals are reached. That's how you force yourself to be consistent, by refusing to let a day go by without at least one step forward. So if you ever feel overwhelmed, stuck, or too busy to make progress, forget the grand gestures. Go small, go focused, go now. Give yourself 5 minutes, turn off your phone, clear your space, take one action, write one paragraph, read one page, stretch one muscle, make one call. Whatever your goal is, there's a 5-minute version of it waiting for you to show up. That's where the shift begins. Stop believing that success demands massive effort. Start believing in the magic of small, intentional steps. Discipline doesn't require hours. It requires heart, and heart is built in the moments when you could have done nothing, but chose to do something. 5 minutes can change your life, if you let it. There is something powerful about deciding who you are before the world tells you otherwise. When you attach your identity to the actions you want to take, consistency becomes easier, not because the process becomes less demanding, but because you're no longer negotiating with yourself. If you see yourself as a writer, you write. If you see yourself as an athlete, you train. If you see yourself as a disciplined person, you act with discipline. Identity shapes behavior more deeply than motivation ever could. And once your identity is aligned with your vision, the habits that once felt forced begin to feel natural. Most people make the mistake of focusing only on behavior. They say, I want to wake up early, or I want to go to the gym, or I want to stop procrastinating. But if deep down they still see themselves as someone who sleeps late, avoids discomfort, or lacks focus, then those behaviors never stick. The actions might change for a week, maybe 2, but eventually they fall back into the familiar pattern. Because your behavior will always reflect your self-image. To stay consistent, you need to rewire how you see yourself. Instead of waiting to become the person you want to be after the results show up, you begin by claiming the identity now. You say, this is who I am, and then you back it up with action. You live in alignment with that decision. You stop entertaining identities that contradict your goals. You no longer call yourself lazy or inconsistent or undisciplined, even as a joke. Words have power. The way you describe yourself becomes the way you operate. Every time you take an action that reinforces your new identity, you cast a vote for the person you want to be. One workout is a vote for I'm someone who takes care of my body. One focused hour of work is a vote for I'm someone who values progress. These votes stack up, and with enough repetition, your identity shifts. You don't have to fake it. You simply practice it until it becomes truth. Identity is not fixed. It's built moment by moment through your choices. This approach also eliminates inner conflict. When you identify as the kind of person who follows through, it doesn't feel like a constant fight to stay consistent. You're not dragging yourself into action. You're simply acting in alignment with who you believe yourself to be. There's no gap between what you say and what you do. That integrity gives you power. It reduces friction. It removes the need for constant decision making. You no longer ask, should I do this? Because the answer is already embedded in your identity. Consider the difference between someone who says, I'm trying to quit smoking, and someone who says, I'm not a smoker. The first is struggling with behavior. The second has already shifted identity. That shift creates clarity, and clarity fuels consistent action. This applies to any habit, any discipline, any goal. Want to read more? Don't just aim to read books. See yourself as a reader. Want to build a business? Don't just work on projects. See yourself as a builder. Want to grow stronger? Don't just hit the gym. see yourself as someone who values physical strength. When you shift identity, the question changes from "can I do this?" to "what would someone like me do?" and that question guides your behavior in the right direction. It also provides resilience, because when challenges arise, and they will, you won't need to rely on willpower alone. You'll act from identity. You'll say, "This is who I am, and this is what I do." That anchor keeps you steady in storms. It reminds you that you are not defined by your circumstances, your emotions, or your past failures. You are defined by the standard you choose to hold yourself to, and when that standard is rooted in identity, it becomes non-negotiable. It's important to remember that identity is not declared in a loud moment of inspiration. It is proven through daily, quiet consistency. The person who identifies as a disciplined, focused achiever doesn't shout it. They live it. They make choices in line with that identity even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching, that's where true character is built. In the invisible moments where you either honor or betray the image you hold of yourself. Sometimes you have to act like the person you want to be, even when it doesn't feel natural yet. You might not feel like a leader, act like one anyway. You might not feel like a confident speaker, speak anyway. The feelings will catch up. Identity is forged through repetition, not comfort. Each time you act in alignment with your highest self, you make it easier to do so again tomorrow. And over time, you stop acting, you just become. This mindset shift is the key to long-term consistency. You don't have to force yourself every day when your actions are aligned with who you believe yourself to be. You no longer seek motivation to start. You simply act because that's what people like you do. That's what your identity demands, and the beauty is, once you step into that identity, everything else becomes easier. Not effortless, but easier, because you're no longer swimming against the current of who you used to be. So take a hard look at how you define yourself. What labels are you carrying that no longer serve your vision? What old identities are you clinging to that keep you small? Let them go. Choose a new image. One that supports your highest goals. Claim it, live it, and reinforce it daily with small, deliberate actions. Because consistency is not just about what you do, it's about who you believe you are, and the person you believe you are will always win. There will never be a perfect time. Waiting for the ideal conditions before you take action is one of the most seductive forms of procrastination. People convince themselves that they'll start when things settle down, when they have more energy, when they have more clarity, or when life feels less chaotic. But that day rarely comes. Life does not pause to make room for your goals. It keeps moving, shifting, demanding, and if you keep waiting, you'll watch your potential pass by while you stand still, caught in the trap of hesitation. Progress belongs to those who act despite the noise. It's not about eliminating distractions or emotions or uncertainty. It's about acting anyway. The most consistent, successful people are not the ones with the clearest path, the most free time, or the perfect mindset. They're the ones who learn to operate within the mess. They didn't wait for fear to vanish. They didn't wait to feel confident. They stepped into action while those things were still present. And in doing so, they built the resilience required for long-term success. Discomfort is not a signal to stop, it's a signal to grow. Most people misunderstand this. They feel resistance and assume it's a sign to wait. They interpret self-doubt or fatigue or distraction as a reason to pause. But that resistance is part of the process. It's not a wall, it's a door you walk through to become stronger, sharper, more capable. You don't wait for it to disappear. You move through it, and on the other side, you find progress. There's a lie we often tell ourselves: I'll be more motivated tomorrow. That lie keeps people trapped for years. Motivation is fleeting. It's unreliable. What matters is not how you feel about taking action, but that you take action regardless. Discipline means doing what needs to be done whether you feel like it or not. If you're always waiting for the right mood, you will be stuck forever. The way out is to act now, especially when it feels inconvenient. Every excuse that begins with when is a delay tactic. When I have more time, when I feel ready, when things calm down, replace those phrases with despite. Despite being tired, I'll take one step. Despite the chaos, I'll focus for 10 minutes. Despite the fear, I'll start now. This is how you shift from delay to momentum, from wishing to building, from hoping to becoming. The moment you stop giving power to the idea of the perfect time is the moment you begin to move. Acting in the now doesn't mean you ignore planning or preparation. It means you stop using them as crutches. It means you acknowledge the value of strategy, but you don't allow strategy to become a substitute for motion. Action creates clarity. It reveals what works and what doesn't. You can't think your way into mastery. You have to move your way there. The best way to learn is by doing, especially when you feel uncertain. Waiting until you know everything is another trap. The best lessons are earned through experience, not theory. People often think they need more time, but what they actually need is more urgency, not panic, not pressure, but a sense of importance, a recognition that life doesn't pause for your plans. You cannot guarantee next week, next month, or next year. What you can control is what you do today, and the sooner you act, the sooner you make progress. Even small steps taken today are worth more than grand plans delayed indefinitely. There's another layer to this. Confidence doesn't precede action, it follows it. Too many people are waiting to feel confident before they begin, but confidence is built by doing hard things, by showing up, struggling, improving. You earn it through repetition. You don't wait for it, you create it. The first few steps will be messy. They should be. That's how you learn, that's how you grow. Embrace the imperfection and move anyway. The discipline to act in the moment builds something greater than momentum. It builds identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who doesn't wait, someone who moves with purpose, someone who values growth over comfort. That identity strengthens over time, and soon, taking action in the face of discomfort becomes your default. Not because it's easier, but because it's who you are. And let's be clear, there will never be a day when everything feels perfect. There will always be challenges, doubts, distractions. If you only act when everything lines up, you'll spend your life preparing instead of living. The secret is to start where you are, with what you have, in the middle of the mess. Let the world be noisy. Let your mind be imperfect. Just take the next step anyway. The people who achieve what others admire are not the ones who had better circumstances. They're the ones who did more with the same challenges. They acted when others waited. They moved when others hesitated. They trained when it was inconvenient. They wrote, built, practiced, learned, while others said, not now. And eventually, the compound effect of those decisions became impossible to ignore. You don't have to be extreme. You just have to be consistent. And consistency is born from a refusal to wait. A refusal to delay your dreams for a mythical future. This is the time, not next year, not next week, not tomorrow, now. Even if you only have 10 minutes, even if you feel off, even if nothing feels aligned, move anyway. Start in the middle of the chaos. Act in the fog of uncertainty. Begin while your hands shake and your voice trembles. That's where real strength is forged. You'll look back one day and realize that the hardest part wasn't the work, it was the decision to stop waiting. That decision can happen today, this moment, right now. The most powerful form of accountability is the one that happens in silence, not the kind shouted from rooftops, not the kind that requires applause or recognition, but the kind that exists between you and the standard you hold yourself to. It's the quiet, unshakable agreement you make with yourself to show up, to follow through, to stay aligned with your values no matter who's watching. This is self-accountability, and it is the foundation of consistency. People often seek external sources to keep them on track. A mentor, a partner, a coach, a deadline. While those tools can be helpful, they are not sustainable if your internal compass is weak. You cannot build a disciplined life around someone else's presence. Sooner or later, you're alone in your decisions, alone in the quiet moments when no one will praise your effort or punish your laziness, and it is in those moments that your results are truly shaped. The ability to hold yourself to your own standard when no one is looking is what separates those who only start from those who finish. It's easy to talk about your goals. It's easy to write them down, create vision boards, and tell people what you're planning. But none of that matters without action, and action becomes consistent when it's driven by something deeper than approval or attention. When you develop an internal standard, a personal code, you no longer need to justify your choices to anyone else. You show up because that's what you've decided matters. You stay on course because the alternative is no longer acceptable. Self-accountability means taking full ownership, no blaming, no excuses, no outsourcing your discipline. You recognize that your life is your responsibility and you act accordingly. If you fail to follow through, you don't look outward, you look inward. You don't ask, whose fault is this? You ask, where did I break my own word? This kind of radical honesty is rare. But it is the starting point for true transformation. One of the strongest ways to practice this is through daily reflection. Take 5 minutes at the end of the day and ask yourself, did I honor my goals today? Did I act in alignment with the person I want to become? Where did I fall short? What can I do better tomorrow? These small, quiet questions create a powerful loop of feedback. You begin to self-correct, you build awareness, you stop drifting, you stay intentional, not because anyone else is watching, but because you are. This kind of integrity builds confidence. When you do what you say you will do over and over again, you begin to trust yourself. You no longer second guess your capabilities. You no longer rely on bursts of motivation. You have evidence, stacked through repetition, that you are reliable, that you follow through, that you are who you say you are. And that internal confidence becomes a foundation no failure can shake. You also become your own standard setter. You stop comparing your progress to others. You stop chasing validation. You define success for yourself, and then you pursue it with quiet intensity. You don't need to announce your grind. You don't need a pat on the back for doing the right thing. The reward is in the act itself, the knowledge that you stayed true to your path. There will be days when the work feels pointless, when no one notices, when progress is invisible. On those days, the temptation to give in or give up will be strong. But this is where self-accountability is most important. When you've trained yourself to keep going, not because someone told you to, but because you told yourself you would, you can endure anything. You are no longer tied to results or recognition. You are driven by principle, by habit, by character. This doesn't mean being harsh or rigid. Self-accountability is not self-punishment. It's not about beating yourself up when you slip. It's about staying honest, staying responsible, and most importantly, staying on track. If you miss a day, you acknowledge it. If you fall short, you learn, but you do not quit. You do not hide from your own truth. You realign and return. That's what matters. Over time, this commitment to inner discipline reshapes your entire life. Your relationships, your work, your health, your dreams, they all begin to reflect the standard you've set within. You become the kind of person others can rely on because you've learned to rely on yourself. And that kind of consistency radiates. It creates trust. It creates results. It creates peace. You no longer need to scream your goals to the world. You don't need constant reminders or rewards. You simply live your code. You wake up and do the work. You end the day knowing you gave your best. And day by day, the gap between who you are and who you want to be closes. Quietly, powerfully. Self-accountability is not glamorous. It doesn't trend. It doesn't beg for attention, but it works. It creates real, lasting change, because when your standard lives within you, you carry it everywhere you go, into every choice, every challenge, every victory. So if you want to be consistent, start here. Become the kind of person who keeps promises, especially the ones no one else knows about. Build a standard so solid that nothing outside of you can shake it. Let your integrity be your guide, your discipline be your engine, and your own quiet voice be your accountability partner. That is where true power lies, not in what you do once, but in what you do always, especially when no one is watching.